There are sounds a hospital makes at 2 a.m. that mean nothing. Sandra knew all of them. What she heard on a Tuesday in late November 2019 was not one of them. Sandra had been a night shift nurse for 11 years. She worked a general ward at a mid-sized hospital in central Ohio. Not glamorous work, not dramatic most nights. Mostly it was rounds, vitals, medication logs, and the particular kind of exhaustion that comes from watching the clock move slowly towards 6 a.m. She was the kind of person who didn't rattle easily. 11 years of nights will either break you or make you unshakable. Sandra was the latter. She'd seen patients pass. She'd seen families fall apart in waiting rooms. She knew the sound the hospital made at 2 a.m., and she knew which ones meant something and which ones didn't. She thought she knew. It started on a Tuesday in late November 2019. The ward was unusually quiet. Only 6 patients across 12 beds, all stable, all sleeping. Sandra was at the nurse's station doing paperwork when she noticed something small, something easy to dismiss. The call light above bed 4 was on. Bed 4 was empty. Had been empty all week. She checked the board herself at the start of the shift. She walked down the corridor, pushed open the door to the room. Empty bed, made and clean. She reached up and pressed the reset button on the call panel. Light went off. She went back to her station. 20 minutes later, it came on again. Pause. Same room, same bed, same empty mattress. She called maintenance, logged it as a faulty call light, and moved on. These things happened. Old buildings, old wiring. Nothing to think about. But on her next shift, Thursday, bed 4 still empty. The light came on again. This time at 3:17 a.m. She knew the exact time because she'd been staring at the clock, willing it toward morning. She walked to the room, pushed the door open, and stopped. The bed had been slept in. Not dramatically, not ransacked, just the pillow had a depression in it. The sheet on the left side was turned back, neatly, the way a patient might fold it down before they slept. A single indent in the mattress, roughly the size and shape of a person. What do you think happened next? Place your thoughts in the comment section and subscribe for more stories like this. Sandra stood in the doorway for a long time. She checked with the other nurses. Nobody had moved a patient into that room. Nobody had been in there. The ward door required a key card after midnight. She pulled the access log herself. No entries to that room since Monday. She remade the bed. She documented it as unexplained. She told herself there was a rational explanation she hadn't found yet. The following Tuesday, her next night's shift, she arrived to find a note from the day nurse supervisor in her folder. It read, "Heads up, bed 4 has been flagged. 3rd time this month, housekeeping has had to remake it overnight. No explanation found. Maintenance has checked the call system twice. All clear. 3rd time this month." Sandra had only seen it twice. She asked around quietly. A senior nurse named Gloria, who'd worked that ward for over 20 years, listened to Sandra's account without expression. When Sandra finished, Gloria was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That room used to be where we kept terminal patients. End-of-life care, before they moved it to the 4th floor. We had a patient, a man, older, came in alone, no family, who passed in that bed back in 2003. He used to press the call button all night, every night. Not because he needed anything, just because he didn't want to be alone in the dark." Sandra asked what happened to him. Gloria said he died alone anyway. Night shift. Nobody got there in time. Sandra requested a ward transfer 2 weeks later. She works days now. She hasn't worked a night shift since. Bed 4, as far as anyone knows, still occasionally has its call light turn on after midnight. Nobody has found an explanation. I want to pause here for a second. If you're finding tonight's stories unsettling, good. That means they're working. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Every single subscriber helps this channel keep going, and I have stories coming that are going to be even harder to shake than these. We're not done yet. 2 more stories. Stay with me. Marcus was 26 when he took a job as a night security guard at a large distribution warehouse outside of Memphis, Tennessee. It was 2021, work was hard to come by, and the pay was decent enough, $12 an hour to walk around, check doors, log rounds, watch the cameras. Simple, The warehouse was massive, roughly the size of 4 football fields, stacked floor to ceiling with shelving units holding packaged goods. His route took him 45 minutes to complete at a steady walk. He did it 4 times a night. For the first 3 weeks, nothing unusual happened. He walked, he logged, he sat in the security booth watching grainy camera feeds and eating vending machine food until 6 a.m. Boring, safe, fine. Then came the night of December 3rd. Marcus was on his second round of the night, somewhere around 1:30 a.m. when he heard it. A sound from deep in aisle 7, the long central aisle that ran the full length of the building. A rhythmic sound, slow and deliberate, like something heavy being dragged across the concrete floor. He stopped, listened. It stopped. He told himself it was the building settling. Old warehouses did that. He kept walking, but on his third round, around 3 a.m., the sound was back, and this time it was closer. Aisle 4. He could hear it from the main corridor, that slow, heavy dragging, back and forth, like something pacing. He radioed his supervisor. No answer. Standard for 3 a.m. The supervisor worked days and was unreachable overnight except for emergencies. Marcus decided it was an emergency. He went to the camera room and pulled up the feed for aisle 4. The camera showed an empty aisle. Shelving units, boxes, concrete floor. Nothing moving. He watched for 3 full minutes. Still, silent on camera, but he could still hear it. From where he sat in the booth, through the thin wall separating him from the warehouse floor. Still dragging, still pacing. Marcus did something that he later said was either the bravest or the stupidest thing he'd ever done. He picked up his torch, walked out of the booth, and went to aisle 4 himself. The aisle was empty. He walked its full length, about 200 feet, torch sweeping left and right. Nothing. No signs of disturbance. No displaced boxes. No animal. No person. The concrete floor was dusty in places and smooth in others. In the dust, roughly halfway down the aisle, he found marks. 2 parallel lines, each about 8 inches wide, spaced roughly 3 feet apart, running about 12 feet across the floor. The kind of marks you'd expect from something very heavy being dragged. Recently, the dust was still disturbed at the edges, not yet settled. Pause. The marks led to the wall and stopped. Not a door, not at an opening of any kind, just the solid exterior wall of the warehouse. Brick and steel, no gaps, no access points. Marcus finished his shift. He documented what he'd found, photographed the marks on his phone. In the morning showed his supervisor. The supervisor had no explanation. A structural engineer was brought in the following week to inspect the wall for any hidden spaces or crawl access points. None were found. The drag marks were photographed, documented, and then, in the way of these things, quietly forgotten by management. Marcus quit at the end of that month. He told me that what disturbed him most wasn't the sound or the marks. It was the camera footage, because when he reviewed the full night's recordings after his shift, he found that the camera covering aisle 4 had a gap. 17 minutes of footage, from 2:58 a.m. to 3:15 a.m., simply didn't exist. No corruption warning, no error code. The timestamp jumped from 2 hours, 57 minutes, and 59 seconds to 3 hours, 15 minutes, and 1 second, as if those 17 minutes had been surgically removed. The camera system was digital, cloud-backed, and according to the manufacturer, impossible to locally delete from. Nobody has explained the missing footage. Nobody has tried very hard to. This last story was sent to me by a woman named Priya, who worked the overnight shift at a remote petrol station on a stretch of highway in rural Georgia for 8 months in 2018. The station was open 24 hours. Most nights between midnight and 5 a.m., she saw fewer than 10 customers. Some nights, none at all. She described it as the loneliest job she'd ever had. Just her, the hum of the refrigeration units, the flicker of the forecourt lights, and the empty roads stretching away into nothing in both directions. She told me she got used to the loneliness. What she didn't get used to was the car. First appeared in early March. A dark-colored sedan. She thought black, possibly dark blue, hard to tell under the yellow forecourt lights. That pulled in sometime around 3 a.m. and stopped at the far pump. Pump 7, the one furthest from a booth. The car sat there, engine off. Nobody got out. Priya watched it on the monitor for about 10 minutes before she picked up the intercom and said, "Can I help you?" No response. The car didn't move. She called the non-emergency police line. By the time a patrol car arrived, about 25 minutes later, the dark sedan was gone. No record of it on the pump system, meaning it had never activated a nozzle. It had just sat there and left. The following week, same night, same time, 3 a.m., dark sedan, pump 7, engine off, nobody getting out. This time Priya didn't call the police. This time she walked out to the forecourt herself and approached the car. She told me she still isn't sure why she did that. She said it felt, in some strange way, like the car was waiting for her specifically, like she was meant to go to it. She got within about 10 feet of it. The windows were dark, tinted, she thought, or simply reflecting the forecourt lights in a way that made it impossible to see inside. She called out, asked if the driver needed help. The engine started. She stepped back. The car sat there another 10 seconds with the engine running. Then it pulled off the forecourt, turned onto the highway, and disappeared heading north. No plates. She checked the camera footage afterward. The rear of the car was clearly visible as it turned. The plate area was empty. No registration. No plates at all. It came back 5 more times over the following 4 months. Always the same night of the week. Always the same time. Always pump 7. Always the same routine. Engine off, nobody emerging, sitting for exactly as long as it took for Priya to notice and respond, then leaving. The last time it came, something was different. Priya noticed it pull in as usual. She watched it on the monitor. And then, for the first time, the driver's door opened. A figure got out. She described it as a man, tall, wearing dark clothing. He walked toward the booth, not hurrying, just walking steadily directly toward her window. Priya hit the lock on the booth door and called 911. The figure stopped about 15 feet from her window. She said he just stood there, looking at the booth. She couldn't make out his face under the forecourt lighting. The angle was wrong, the peak of his cap too low. The 911 dispatcher stayed on the line with her. She could hear the operator's voice. She kept her eyes on the figure. He stood there for 4 minutes. Then he turned around, walked back to the car, got in, and drove away. North again. No plates. Police arrived, reviewed footage, logged a report. No vehicle matching the description was ever identified. Priya handed in her notice that morning. She said the thing that's never left her, the detail she comes back to, is that across all those visits, across all those nights of sitting at Pump 7 and waiting, the figure only ever approached the booth on the night she decided she was going to quit, as if something had been watching long enough to know. A call light in an empty room, drag marks leading to a solid wall. A car with no plates that only approached on the night she decided to leave. 3 jobs, 3 very different kinds of darkness, and 3 people who will spend the rest of their lives wondering what exactly was sharing that darkness with them. Thank you for being here tonight. If these stories got under your skin, and I hope they did, subscribe to True Crime and Folktale so you never miss an episode. Leave a comment telling me which story disturbed you the most. I read every single one. And if you've worked a night shift somewhere that felt wrong, somewhere that gave you a story you've never quite been able to explain, send it to me. The link is in the description. I'll be back soon with more. Sleep well.